Hello and welcome to World Talks. My name is Adam Jassa. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is facing pressure to revive the stagnant German economy. Since taking office over a year ago, Merz has seen his popularity sink, and his Christian Democratic Union has been overtaken in opinion polls by the far-right anti-EU Alternative for Germany. To discuss the political situation in Germany, I'm joined by Andreas Umland, Policy Fellow at the European Policy Institute.
Thanks for having me here.
Hello, Andreas. Thank you for joining us. So, the Chancellor has returned from his summer break, promising new reform push, and was met by boos from the audience when he started speaking. How bad is his position?
For him personally, it's pretty bad now because what we see is a fall of the CDU to an embarrassing level, and especially a fall in this support for the Chancellor to also an embarrassing low level. And so the Chancellor is actually responsible for this low rating for his party, and for the sad fact that now the governing coalition in Germany has insufficient support, and there's now an intense discussion in Germany about a change of the Chancellor that is more easily in Germany done than in other countries because we have a proportional representation system. But for Chancellor Merz now, things look really dire, and I would not exclude a change in the chancellorship. Maybe not a change of the government, but a change of the Chancellor in the near future.
There's no tradition of early elections in Germany. It very rarely happens. So, does that confirm what you just said, that it's more likely that there will be a change of Chancellor than, let's say, an early election?
Yes, exactly. Since the coalitions or the governments in Germany have always been coalitions, there is a possibility to resolve such issues within a parliament, either through a change of coalition or through a change simply of the personnel that is involved in the government, and especially, of course, of the Chancellor. And we had that before, let's say in the 1970s, when Chancellor Brandt was exchanged for Chancellor Schmidt. And so that is an available option in Germany. It's also seen as a relatively easy option for a government to diffuse a governmental crisis. So that is something that is perhaps peculiar also to Germany, that this is relatively easy done. And by this way, also the current governing coalition between the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats can be preserved, and one can avoid in this way then early elections.
So what exactly is Merz now promising as his sort of last attempt at holding on to power?
Well, the big promise of this new government was that there would be deep reforms that would revive the German economy. It's the economy, stupid, and the big problem of this coalition, which is led by two old centrist parties that traditionally had the profile of being a pro-industry, pro-entrepreneurship parties. Both of these parties are performing miserably, and the German economy is stagnating, and that is seen by many as an embarrassment. But we should also not underestimate the enormous populist propaganda that is going on from the side of especially the far right, from the Alternative for Germany, but also from the far left. These parties are painting a picture of easy solutions for the German economy and are making far-reaching promises. But in fact, there are deep structural problems for the German economy, and they cannot be easily resolved. And Merz is made responsible, or is seen as being responsible for the non-solution of these structural problems.
Does it matter that he's also personally unpopular, that he doesn't seem to have charisma? In some sense, does he remind you of, let's say, Keith Starmer, who was forced out as British Prime Minister not many months ago, also because he seemed okay, but not really leading the country?
Yes, I guess this is also more and more a factor, although I would say during the electoral campaign, Merz was rather effective as a campaigner. He was also promising that he would actually cut the support of the Alternative for Germany because he was presenting himself as more right-wing than the old CDU Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, who was seen as more centrist. But this sort of image has now evaporated, and he is seen as a weak chancellor who cannot solve problems, although that was exactly his sort of self-image during the electoral campaign, that he comes from the economy, he is a problem solver, he will get Germany on track again. But so far the performance has been not very impressive, although one has to say to his credit that the task is really enormous because Germany has for decades been, I would say, rather too conservative in terms of its economic and technological policies. And now the country has to modernize quickly. But it's a country also where you have a lot of veto players in politics, and you have sort of co-regents, co-governors, so to say, of the country in many parts of society, not just in the parliament and the government, but also with the trade unions, with the regional governments, and so on. You have a large diffusion of power, and the chancellor is actually limited in his opportunities, but he is seen as being responsible for this lack of reforms and lack of reform success in Germany.
You mentioned the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, and that it is now ahead in opinion polls. And also there is a regional election coming up in Saxony-Anhalt. So, and some opinion polls predict that this party could actually win a majority and rule alone. What would be the impact of that on Merz, on German stability, on politics in Germany?
Indeed, if the Alternative for Germany wins a majority in these regional elections in Saxony-Anhalt that would allow it to reign, that would be a sea change in German politics. That would be the first time since World War II that we would have a regional government dominated by a party that is not only right-wing populist, but that is generally classified now as right-wing extremist. And that would look very bad for Germany. That would be really a big issue. On the other hand, the German political system is such that this is not yet something very practically important for German politics, because it would be a relatively small region that would be controlled by the extreme right, and the extreme right would get a seat in the so-called Federal Council. That's the upper chamber of the German parliament, but it would still remain isolated and stigmatized on the federal level.
But what would be
federal parliament?
What would be the sort of security implications of that? Because we have heard that, you know, AfD is pro-Russian, anti-Ukrainian. Some politicians from that party have been compromised by contacts with intelligence agencies, allegedly from hostile countries. So, you know, how would that affect, if they had a bigger say on the federal level as well, how would that affect Yes, the security situation in Germany and in Europe.
That is already a big discussion in Germany, how much access also the alternative for Germany should be given to, let's say, intelligence information, and how much influence it should have on questions regarding security. So far, the party in the federal parliament, in the Bundestag, is an opposition party and is limited in its influence there. But this success that it will now probably have in Saxony-Anhalt, and perhaps also in other, especially East German regions, will increase the pressure to actually include the party in certain foreign and security related processes. And that would be indeed a problem, because this is a party that is quite openly pro-Russian and anti-Ukrainian, and I'm not sure yet how this is going to be resolved, because the centrist parties in Germany are now very pro-Ukrainian, and they have fundamentally changed their attitude towards Russia in the last 5 years.
Alice Weidel, the boss of the AfD, he said that the weekend she granted a big interview, and she said her party, if it won at the federal level, would take Germany out of the free travel Schengen arrangement and also abandon the euro. Is she saying this because she knows this will never happen and she can say these things, or is this a serious threat?
You never know, but I think it's largely a populist argument, because these are popular topics, especially in East Germany, but also with large parts of the West German population, who blame the problems that Germany is currently having with immigration, with the economy, with supporting also the other countries of the European Union through the EU. That is seen as being responsible for Germany's problems. German money should go to Germans. That's basically the argument here. And that's popular, although I agree with you. I don't think that any of this could happen. And actually, it would hurt Germany and German industry, the German economy, if these things would happen, because the free trade and free movement of people and also the euro are very good for German economy. The German economy remains an export economy.
Right. We're running out of time, but if you could just very quickly tell me, why is the AfD so strong in East Germany?
That's a big issue that is discussed among sociologists, because East Germany has profited in many ways from the German reunification and from becoming part of the Federal Republic. And now the East Germans are supporting a party, that is against basically the Federal Republic as it emerged after World War II. So in a way, this
Andreas,
is a paradox.
Yeah, we have to run. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching, but stay with us for a news update.